This is Detective Recapped. Today I'm going to explain a psychological thriller film called Return to Sender. Spoilers ahead, watch out, and take care. In a small town hospital, a couple of nurses observe an ongoing surgery. One of them is Miranda, who's preparing to become a surgical nurse. Aside from being dedicated to her profession, Miranda genuinely cares for her patients too. After observing the surgery, she's talking to her colleague, Nancy, when she noticed a priest coming out of one of her patients' rooms. She goes to the room to check, and there she finds the lifeless patient. Miranda expresses her sympathies to the patient's son, who's just sitting there in a daze. Eventually, though, he answers that he wishes his mother had suffered good and long. This morbid sentiment takes Miranda aback, but it seems like the son is talking more to himself than to her. Lost in his disturbing murmurings, he doesn't even notice Miranda leaving the room. With Nancy waiting outside the door, the both of them are confused by his abnormal and even violent resentment towards his mother. But the topic soon shifts when Nancy teases Miranda about her blind date, one that she was trying to keep it as a secret. Later on, Miranda heads to a laundry shop to retrieve a dress and wear it. Once she's home, she starts looking for her father, but she can't seem to find him. Suddenly, her father's dog attacks her, but fortunately, Miranda's dad, Mitchell, appears from the door and calls the dog. It already ruined her dress, so Miranda walks away, annoyed. After the incident, the two of them go to a restaurant they frequent. There, Miranda ends up saving a choking customer by cutting his throat and inserting a straw into it for her to blow into. Days pass, and Miranda's now touring the house she plans on buying. Being a splendid baker herself, the double-door oven catches her attention. She even manages to prepare a cake for her friend that's so beautiful. It even looks like it's professionally done. After some time, a friend of hers reminds Miranda not to cancel the date she set up for her with her husband's acquaintance, Kevin. Miranda's never met the man before, but she assures her that she's not going to cancel. On the day of her date, Miranda's painting her nails red when she hears someone on the porch. She opens the door and immediately assumes that the man there is Kevin. Miranda's puzzled and he arrived too early, but she lets it go, mostly because she's eager to see the parcel placed on her porch. As she's about to take it inside herself, Kevin offers to help, and he lets himself in. Remembering that she isn't dressed yet, Miranda hurries towards her room to get changed, but she realizes that she hasn't offered him a drink yet. When asked if he wants a lemonade, Kevin tries to ease the tension and jokingly asks if he has to pay for it. Miranda reacts with an awkward smile, and after Kevin declines, she goes to her room to change. As he waits for her, Kevin can't keep still and is busy surveying the corners of the house, perhaps out of curiosity about what's inside. Eventually, he asks her if she's moving. But since Miranda can't hear him from her room, he stands by the narrow entrance to her room. He talks louder, and she answers him from the inside. Miranda comes out in a white dress, but she's surprised to see him blocking her way. Though this disturbs her, Kevin kindly makes way for her, and Miranda decides to let it go. She would then take the package from her table, and while she's so absorbed by it, Kevin maliciously stares at her. "You look hot," he blurts out, and it sounds more like a thought that he said out loud. Miranda doesn't hear him, or she pretends not to, in favor of being immersed with the package. She asks him what he said, and Kevin corrects himself, saying that she looks fine. Miranda thoughtlessly thanks him, and says that she's been dying to receive the package. She then sits on the study table and unpacks it with excitement. The parcel contains a pen, and she tries it out right away, making Kevin confused and impatient as he's now being ignored over a pen. He moves closer to her to get the other pen on the table and maybe strike another conversation. But this just pisses her off. She takes the pen back, then gets up to tell him that she should probably finish getting ready for the date, ushering him to just leave and come back later. This surprises Kevin, and he seems to be expecting something else. From that point on, he starts being cross with her and insists on staying, which now has Miranda suspicious of him. Kevin begrudgingly walks to the door, but instead of leaving, he locks it. Amidst her perplexity and rising fear, Miranda demands him to unlock the door, but her words are unheard as the man draws closer and attacks her. She frantically fights hard to escape his grasp, but he easily overpowers her, and soon he starts forcing himself on her. Powerless, Miranda can't do anything but cry in sheer horror and pain. Through this, it's also revealed that the man isn't actually Kevin, but someone who's just been looking to take advantage of Miranda. After his vile crime, the intruder runs away. Soon after, the real Kevin shows up and enters the house as the door was left open. The house is in total disarray by the time he's arrived, and he keeps calling for Miranda to no avail. He would then grow stupefied upon seeing her on the floor, helpless and beaten up. He immediately calls the authorities at once, and Kevin testifies to the police while Miranda's in the hospital receiving treatment. When asked if she recognizes the man who did this to her, she says yes. Meanwhile, the intruder, William, is seen entering the kitchen of the restaurant that Miranda and Mitchell frequent. William used to work there, and he covers his face with a cap as he tries to hide, but he still gets caught. The authorities come by the hospital, and Mitchell is with his daughter. They inform him that William has been sentenced to prison. With a heavy heart, Mitchell goes to the house and cleans the mess left from the horrific accident. The days that follow are bleak, and Miranda is back at her house alone and discouraged. With time, Miranda's bruises heal, but the scars in her psyche remain. She's grown short-tempered these days, and when the real estate agent visits, she gets irritated when the agent tells her that she can't sell her house to buy a new one. More than irritated, Miranda's devastated that she's going to be stuck in that house, and she can't even do anything about it. It's implied that people don't want to buy a house where someone has been violated in, so the agent suggests that Miranda should wait a couple of months. Irate, Miranda asks if she's going to be unviolated within those next couple of months, and the agent simply remains patient with her, before suggesting that she plant rose bushes instead. Later, Mitchell comes over and finds her aggressively digging in the yard to plant rose bushes, but she's burying the seed packs directly in the ground. Her dad went over because he couldn't contact her, and it turns out that Miranda's been putting her phone on hold the entire time. Eventually, Miranda returns to work, but she finds that she can't hold a syringe properly anymore as her hands developed a tremor. Her colleagues then surprise her with a present for her future transfer to the surgery team, but this doesn't please her, as she's more jealous of her friend's gift-wrapping talent. That night, Miranda's trying to bake a cake again, but unlike before, she can't do the frosting well because her hands keep twitching, which is driving her mad. The next day, her supervisor calls her attention as she's been so distracted lately before informing her that she already missed the opportunity to get transferred. Disappointed and out of focus, Miranda gets into an argument with the attendant at the laundry shop. That night, she practices with a toy to try and manage her trembling hands, but they aren't getting any better. Miranda ends up destroying the toy as she loses control. By the time she wakes up, she finds that her hands are finally working fine when she's writing, so Miranda writes a letter to William. After that, she starts looking happier at work, and Nancy notices this. Unfortunately, the letters keep returning to the sender, but Miranda doesn't give up and still sends her letters to him. After placing a letter in the mailbox, she notices that her windows need fixing. Quite some time has passed, and a couple of men are fixing her windows, which are now totally covered. And the house is newly painted. She brings drinks to the men working with noticeably shorter hair and a bubblier personality. She finds her dad hanging on an old swing that she and her mother once used on her porch. But Miranda doesn't like it and gets angry at Mitchell, saying that he always remembers everything differently. She walks out on him, but she hears her dad getting hurt while taking down the swing. She runs back to him and helps him up. But when Miranda sees the mailman, she rushes to him instead, leaving Mitchell just so she could collect her letter, and it's another return to sender. The next day, Mitchell calls her at work because his dog is feeling unwell, and since her dad is hurt too, she offers to take care of the dog herself, coaxing it with hospital food. The night at her house, She takes out all the other letters she wrote to William from the drawer. Miranda's about to open the last returned one when she sees the words "You win" on the unopened envelope. This only means that Williams responded and agreed to see her. Finally, Miranda visits William in prison for the first time. He looks different to her at first, but William confirms that it is him. Though Miranda doesn't know what to say, she confesses that she thinks she just had to be sure that she isn't afraid of him. After the visit, Miranda drives back home with a smile on her face. She visits her dad so she can check on the dog and even feed it. Mitchell's surprised to see this, since she and the dog have always been sworn enemies. To this, Miranda simply replies that hating the dog would only hurt her. The next time Miranda visits William, she wears a skirt and her nails painted red. They talk to each other like two people getting to know one another. Their exchange borders on flirting, and Miranda seems to be enjoying it. Mitchell calls her to check on the dog. She tells him that she's already there with food to give him. Her dad is worried about the dog being sick, and Miranda assures him that it looks just fine to her. She visits William again, and this time she's wearing a sexier dress. But when she gets there, the warden tells her that she can't see him anymore without giving any further reason why. Another prisoner, Randy, makes fun of William for Miranda's frequent visits. It pisses him off, but he holds himself back. For her next visit, Miranda expresses how annoyed she is since he stood her up, so William explains that the other prisoners cornered him because they knew how badly he wanted to get out. Hearing this softens her, and she understands that he wants to get out for her. He tells her that he was in the infirmary before showing her his wounds. All the while, they eye each other seductively. It's Christmas, and Mitchell grows more worried as he notices his pet getting weaker with each passing day. Back in prison, William attacks Randy, who is sniffing the greeting card Miranda sent for Valentine's Day. When Miranda visits him again, she tells him about how Valentine's was her mother's favorite holiday. Miranda's shaken up as she shares how her mother died of an asthma attack because she didn't get her medication on time. Miranda was the one who found her. During their next meeting, William reluctantly asks her if she can see him the following week, and Miranda tells him that she'll have time off for Memorial Day. Still hesitating, William clarifies that he's getting parole. If she's nervous or put off by the news, Miranda doesn't admit it. He promises her that he will never do it again and that he'll start fixing things. Whatever he means by that, Miranda doesn't show if she fully trusts him. After her visit, she's still dumbfounded and alone in her car when she receives a call from her father. The dog has died, and Mitchell has difficulty accepting it, so Miranda buries the dog herself. They sit together in the backyard, reminiscing the past from when her mother died and how Mitchell has many regrets. In the prison cell, William tells Randy he's leaving and sarcastically says that he will miss him. While Miranda's co-workers are talking about vacation, a man comes in delivering flowers to her at work. When her friends ask who they're from, Miranda lies, saying that they're from her father before walking away. When she's finally alone, she talks to William over the phone as he's now gotten out of prison. She complains that he shouldn't have had flowers delivered to her workplace, so William apologizes while looking at the woman outside his place. He can't wait to see Miranda, but it appears that he desires to do more than just see her as he tries to pleasure himself. Miranda returns home from buying groceries, and as she's heading towards the porch, she gets startled when someone calls her. She sees William there, waiting for her. Later on, Miranda tends to her front garden while William fixes her porch. She goes to get him a lemonade, which was what she offered him when they first met. While William's all happy to help her, Miranda's nervous twitch acts up again as she pours the drink into the glass. For all of her attempts at normalcy, she must be anxious around William's presence, but she still tries to calm down. Afterwards, she continues working in the backyard. Just as she's about to carry a large flower pot, William assists her and places it on her doorstep. He notices the hole on the porch ceiling, which was left by Mitchell when he took the old swing down. William mentions that he wants to come back to repair it, and Miranda accepts while the two of them exchange flirty stares with each other. Her face lights up as William walks away, and a smile forms on her face. Mitchell is talking to someone in the hardware store when William steps in to buy paint for Miranda's porch. He recognizes him right away, but William doesn't know he's Miranda's father. As Mitchell watches him get the paint, he subconsciously clutches a bat, barely keeping himself from hitting his daughter's assailant. As soon as William is gone, Mitchell furiously drives off to Miranda's and snaps at her for even seeing that disgusting man. Miranda reasons out that she's trying to find a way to move on, that hating him will only hurt her. Years of therapy isn't going to fix her either, and instead, she'll just die by the inches, hurting and hurting when she's so tired of being hurt already. Incredulous, her father asserts that there are other options that don't involve having her damn assailant over for dinner, but Miranda remains unmoved. William soon shows up again and continues with helping her fix her porch. She offers him a drink before they get started, and though the drink is too sweet, he drinks it all up anyway. While Miranda's painting the chair, William joins her, his eyes lecherous on her form. She's aware of this but says nothing to reprimand him. A few moments later, William's stomach grows upset, so he asks if he can use the bathroom. She's hesitant at first, but she lets him in anyway. But just as he shuts the door, a loud thud could be heard, like the sound of something collapsing. Surprisingly, Miranda is wearing the same white dress she wore the day she was violated. William wakes up, feeling unwell with his body tied to the bed in the basement. It turns out she mixed something in his drink, just like what she's been doing to her father's dog until it died. William desperately tries to stop her, trying to remind her that she's supposed to be a nurse who saves people, just like how she saved the man in the restaurant from choking. Miranda, however, doesn't listen to a word of what he's saying as she carries on with preparing her surgical tools, looking as if she's going to operate on him. The next time William wakes up, he feels extremely thirsty. Miranda only allows him to drink a bit before she continues tormenting him. William's only reprieve comes when there's a knock on the door, and Miranda goes to see who it is while carrying her hatchet. It turns out that it's just the delivery person. Upon returning to the basement again, Miranda shows him the pen in the parcel. She lets him hold her hands and acts like he's hurting her before throwing a toy hand at William, making him think that she had cut off his own. Miranda laughs frantically, relishing in the sheer fear plastered on William's face. And to top it all off, she reveals that she let her mother die. Miranda coldly says that her mother did a lot of things to her, but she never railed her from behind. She continues mocking him, saying that when he was forcing himself on her, when she was thinking that she might die, she was wondering if it was in yet, because she couldn't feel a thing. Finally, Miranda suggests that he should take a look at himself, as she takes off the blanket to let him see what she had done to him. When William looks down, he could only cry in anguish, and Miranda tells him that he's right. She wins. Later on, Miranda visits her father again, and while the two of them reconcile, lamenting about their past and about Miranda's mother, she tells Mitchell that William is never coming around again.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.